Mom, starting with your next deposit, we're going to transfer all your money to my account. Those were the words my son Andre said to me that Wednesday afternoon while sliding papers across my kitchen table. As if he was proposing something completely normal. As if he was doing me a favor. As if I were incapable of managing the money I'd earned over 36 years as a school secretary. Sign here, here, and here, he said, tapping his finger on the form. I looked at him, saying nothing for several seconds. I searched his eyes for something, anything, that would explain why my own son, the boy I'd raised alone after his father walked out, was demanding total access to my bank account at age 61. But I didn't find anything. Just that calm smile. That confidence of someone who knows they're in control. So I took a deep breath and told him yes. That it seemed fine. That I trusted him. Andre's smile widened. He stood up, gave me a quick mechanical kiss on the forehead, one of those kisses that don't mean anything, and told me it was for the best. You won't have to worry about a thing, he said, tucking the papers into his messenger bag. I'll take care of everything. It's for your own good, Mom. For my own good. Those words hung in the air long after he left my house. That same Friday evening, like clockwork, Andre returned. But he didn't come alone. He arrived with Jada, his girlfriend, just as they did every Friday. He came expecting what he always expected, dinner ready, table set, free hot food waiting, as there had been every Friday for the past 4 years. I heard them arrive. I heard their footsteps at the front door. I heard the key I had given him turning in the lock. I heard the door open. And then I heard the gasp. It was sharp and sudden, the sound of someone seeing something they never expected to see. The sound of someone realizing that things weren't going to be the way they thought. I remained seated at my kitchen table with a glass of water, listening to that gasp echo against the bare walls. I didn't move. I didn't go to see what was happening. I already knew. Andre came running into the kitchen. His face was pale, his eyes wide. Jada followed behind him wearing the same expression of shock and disbelief. Mom! Andre shouted. What did you do? Where is everything? Where's the sofa? The TV? Where's all your furniture? I looked at him calmly, with a calmness I didn't even know I had. And I told him, in the softest voice I could find, that I had sold some things. That I needed the money. That after all, if he was going to be managing my finances, I thought I should make sure I had some cash first. His face changed from pale to red, from shock to fury. He took a step toward me, and for the first time in my life, I saw my son for what he really was. Not the boy I had raised. Not the young man whose college I'd paid for by taking double shifts. But as a stranger looking at me with contempt, with rage, with something that looked dangerously like hatred. You're being reckless, he said, his voice tight. How could you sell everything without talking to me first? What are we supposed to do when we come over now? How are we going to be comfortable here? That was the sentence that changed everything. How are we going to be comfortable here? Not how are you going to be comfortable, Mom? He wasn't worried about how this affected me, but how it was going to affect them, as if my house were their extension, as if my things existed for their convenience. Jada stepped closer then. She looked at me with those eyes that had always seemed cold and calculating. You're being selfish, she said. Only thinking about yourself. We come every week to check on you, to make sure you're okay, and this is how you repay us? Selfish me. The woman who had worked for decades so Andre could go to college debt-free. The woman who had postponed retirement 3 years to help with the down payment on his condo. The woman who had skipped vacations and worn second-hand clothes so he could have everything he needed. Selfish. Andre just stood there looking at me as if I were a problem he needed to solve. Then he said something that should have broken me in two. Maybe it was a mistake to try to help you with your finances, he said. Maybe you're starting to slip more than I thought. A woman your age, living alone, without family who really cares about her, you could end up in a very bad place. The threat wasn't subtle. I rose from my chair then. I looked at them both and told them, in a voice stronger than I expected, that dinner wasn't ready. That there was no dinner. That if they were hungry, they could go eat somewhere else. The silence that followed was thick and heavy. Andre stared at me as if he couldn't believe what he'd just heard. Jada let out a dry, bitter laugh and muttered something about respect. They left then. They stormed out of my house, slamming doors, leaving a trail of rage and veiled threats behind them. I heard them get into his car. I heard the engine start. I heard them drive away. And I stood there in my empty kitchen in my empty house, feeling something inside me change for good. But what I felt wasn't fear. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't even anger. It was clarity. I walked to my bedroom, the one room I'd left fully furnished, and opened my closet door. From the top shelf, I pulled down a thick manila folder labeled, Receipts, and placed it on my bed next to a binder marked, Trust. I had been preparing for this moment for months. My son thought I was slipping. The bank had called it a fraud alert. I sat on the edge of my bed, running my fingers over the trust binder. The folder beside it was still thin, just the beginning of what I would need. But the groundwork had been laid months ago, when I first noticed the pattern. It started with small things. Andre borrowing my credit card and returning it with new charges. Questions about my retirement accounts that felt too probing. Comments about how I was getting forgetful when I mentioned a missing statement. Each incident so minor it could be dismissed, yet together they formed a picture I couldn't ignore. 6 months earlier, I'd made an appointment with Elaine Winters, an estate attorney recommended by my friend Vivian from church. Just to update my will, I'd told Andre when he asked why I needed a lawyer. He nodded, satisfied with what sounded like responsible planning from his aging mother. What I didn't tell him was that Elaine specialized in elder financial abuse cases. A revocable living trust gives you protection while maintaining control, she'd explained during our first meeting. You'll be the trustee of your own assets, but we'll name a successor trustee who can step in if needed. My niece Nia, I'd said without hesitation. She has a good head for money and she's always been straightforward with me. Over the next few weeks, we transferred my house deed and savings into the trust. I'd signed paperwork to freeze my credit with all 3 bureaus. We'd set up fraud alerts that would ping both my phone and Elaine's office email if any new accounts were opened in my name. Most importantly, I'd formally revoked the durable power of attorney I'd signed years ago when Andre had convinced me it was, just in case something happens, Mom. The revocation was notarized and recorded with the county. Keep a copy with you at all times, Elaine had advised. And make sure your bank has one on file. I'd done all of this quietly, between grocery trips and church activities. Andre never asked where I was going. He assumed I was just filling my retirement days with errands and social calls, the harmless activities of a woman he increasingly viewed as a resource rather than a person. Now, sitting on my bed with the empty living room beyond my door, I opened the trust binder and reviewed the protection it provided. My house, the one Andre had just stormed out of, was safely titled in the name of the Helen Marie Jackson Revocable Living Trust. My retirement accounts and the proceeds from my pension had been retitled as well. What Andre didn't know, what he couldn't know, was that the furniture sale was deliberate. A test. I'd listed everything on a local marketplace app 3 days after he'd asked for control of my accounts. The cash from the sales, nearly $4,000, was hidden in a lockbox at Nia's house, not in my home where Andre had a key. I reached for my phone and opened my banking app. That morning, I'd opened a new checking account at a different bank and seeded it with $500. I'd set up small recurring transfers from my main account, $25 every Friday, starting today. Just enough to look like a regular habit, just enough to see if Andre would notice and try to access it. The decoy was baited. Now I would wait. I pulled a legal pad from my nightstand drawer and began cataloging what remained in the house. Serial numbers of my television and computer. Photos of jewelry and kitchenware. I'd need documentation of everything in case items started to disappear during Andre's visits. Next, I organized the contents of my receipts folder, copies of my driver's license and passport, recent bank statements, credit reports, and the notarized revocation of the power of attorney. I added a handwritten timeline of concerning incidents over the past year, each one minor on its own but troubling in aggregate. My phone chimed with a notification. Account change requested. I set down my pen and picked up the phone. Someone had attempted to change the password on my primary email account, the one linked to all my financial services. The request had been blocked because it came from an unrecognized device. I took a screenshot and saved it to a secure folder. Then I sent a text to Nia. It started. "Can you come by tomorrow?" Her response came quickly. "I'll be there at 10. Everything okay?" "Yes," I typed back. "Just following the plan." I closed the binder and folder, returning them to their hiding place in the closet. Then I made myself a cup of tea and sat by my bedroom window, looking out at the darkening sky. Andre thought he was testing me with his demand for my money. He didn't realize I was testing him. And he was failing. The next morning, I checked my decoy account. There had been an attempted login at 11:42 p.m., about 3 hours after Andre had left my house. The attempt was unsuccessful. I'd set up two-factor authentication that required a code sent to my phone. I took another screenshot and added it to my evidence folder. The furniture sale wasn't an act of desperation. The empty living room wasn't a surrender. It was the first move in a game Andre didn't know we were playing. Nia arrived at 10 o'clock sharp the next morning, carrying a box of donuts and a determined expression. At 38, my niece had her mother's no-nonsense attitude and her father's analytical mind. She worked as a compliance officer at a credit union and knew exactly how money could disappear in plain sight. "So he actually tried to access your accounts already?" she asked, sitting at my kitchen table. The empty living room beyond the doorway made her voice echo slightly. "The decoy account, yes. And my email." I poured us both coffee. "But that's just the beginning. I need to see how deep this goes." After breakfast, we drove to my bank, not the one with the decoy account, but my primary institution where I'd banked for 20 years. I'd called ahead for an appointment with the branch manager, Marcus Williams. "Miss Jackson," he greeted me, shaking my hand. "And this is my niece, Nia Taylor. She's the successor trustee on my living trust." His expression shifted subtly, recognition of the legal weight she carried. He led us to a private office and closed the door. "I'd like a complete audit of my accounts for the past 6 months," I said, placing my ID and trust documentation on his desk. "Every transaction, every access point, every device that's logged in." Marcus nodded. "May I ask what prompted this?" I met his eyes. "I have reason to believe someone has been accessing my accounts without authorization." He didn't ask who. He didn't need to. An hour later, we left with a thick envelope of statements and a digital access report. Nia drove us to a quiet cafe where we could review the documents without interruption. "There," she said, pointing to a line item from 3 months ago. "Zelle transfer, $1,200 to the maintenance." "Did you authorize that?" I stared at the entry. "No. I've never used Zelle. And I haven't had any maintenance work done this year." Nia highlighted the transaction and made a note. "The device ID doesn't match your phone or computer. It's from a different IP address too." We continued through the statements methodically. Small withdrawals at ATMs I never used. A recurring payment to a streaming service I didn't subscribe to. And then another Zelle transfer, this one for $800, also to maintenance. $2,000, I said quietly. "Just disappeared." "Not disappeared," Nia corrected. "Stolen." We returned to the bank that afternoon. Marcus reviewed our findings and opened a formal fraud investigation. He confirmed the Zelle transfers had been initiated from a device that had logged into my account using my correct credentials but from a location across town. "We'll need to file a police report," he advised. "And I recommend changing all your passwords immediately." I nodded, though I'd already changed them after Andre's visit. "I'd like to see who maintenance is registered to." Marcus made a call to the fraud department. After several minutes on hold, he received an answer. The recipient account belongs to a Dre Jackson Maintenance Services. It's a business account at First Capital Bank. Dre. Andre's nickname in college. I kept my face neutral, but inside, a cold certainty settled. This wasn't opportunistic. This was calculated. "I'd like to dispute these transactions," I said calmly. Marcus helped me complete the paperwork. The bank would investigate and likely refund the money, but the process could take weeks. I didn't mind. Each form I signed was another piece of evidence. Back at home, I added the bank statements to my folder, now labeled Exhibit A. I cross-referenced my calendar and text messages from the dates of the transfers. No service calls. No maintenance requests. No legitimate reason for those payments. I photographed each document with my phone, uploading the images to a secure cloud account that Nia had helped me set up. Paper could be destroyed, but digital records with timestamps were harder to erase. That evening, I limited my conversation with Andre to brief text messages. He asked if I was feeling better after our misunderstanding. I replied that I was fine, just busy organizing my house. No mention of the bank visit. No hint of what I'd discovered. The paper trail would speak for me. Later, as I was preparing for bed, my phone chimed with a notification. Andre had posted a new story on his social media. I rarely checked his accounts, but tonight I tapped to view it. A photo of his condo hallway, stacked with boxes. The caption read, "Weekend project finally happening. New kitchen cabinets and countertops. Hashtag home improvement, hashtag DIY. I zoomed in on the boxes. One showed the logo of a high-end tool brand. The same brand that had appeared on my credit card statement last month, a charge I'd assumed was a mistake and had disputed. I took a screenshot and saved it to my evidence folder. The first thread was unraveling. Maintenance wasn't home repair. It was home improvement, for Andre's condo, not my house. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. The betrayal stung, but the confirmation steadied me. I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't slipping. I was right. And I was just getting started. The envelope arrived on Tuesday morning, crisp white paper with a hardware store logo in the corner. I recognized the name immediately, Builder's Supply Warehouse, the big box retailer where Andre bought materials for his weekend projects. "Thank you for your recent purchase," the letter began. "Your Builder's Supply Warehouse card ending in 4721 has been activated." I stared at the paper, my coffee growing cold beside me. I had never applied for this card. I had never set foot in a Builder's Supply Warehouse. I called the customer service number printed at the bottom of the letter. After navigating the automated system and verifying my identity, I spoke with a representative named Kevin. "I'm calling about a credit card I received, but I never applied for it," I explained. "I see your card was opened 3 months ago, Ms. Jackson," Kevin replied. "It shows regular activity since then." "What kind of activity?" "Let me pull that up for you." Keyboard clicks filled the pause. There had been purchases totaling $3,412.87. The most recent was 4 days ago for $689.99. My stomach tightened. "Can you tell me what was purchased?" The largest transactions were for cabinet hardware, a premium faucet set, and a cordless tool kit. "Would you like me to email you a complete statement?" "Yes, please," I said, giving him my email address. "And I need to report this card as fraudulent." I never applied for it. Kevin's tone shifted to concern. I'll transfer you to our fraud department right away. They'll need to open an investigation. 40 minutes later, I had a case number, a fraud affidavit to sign and return, and a detailed statement in my inbox. The shipping address for most items was listed as Andre's condo building. I printed the statement and highlighted each purchase. Then I opened Andre's social media profile on my tablet. There it was, a progression of weekend project posts spanning the exact time frame of the card's usage. Cabinet installations. New kitchen faucet. Before and after photos of his condo kitchen renovation. In one image, I could clearly see the brand name of the faucet, matching the $329 charge from 2 months ago. I took screenshots of each post, noting the dates and corresponding charges. The evidence was mounting, but I needed more. I needed to establish a pattern that couldn't be dismissed as a misunderstanding. Next, I logged into my health insurance portal to review my health savings account. I rarely used the HSA, preferring to save it for major medical expenses. The balance should have been growing steadily. Instead, I found 2 withdrawals during a week when I'd been visiting my sister in Atlanta. The first was for $175 at an urgent care center. The second was for $210 at a pharmacy, both in my hometown. I called the urgent care center. I'm checking on a visit that was billed to my HSA, I explained to the receptionist. The date was September 14th. Let me look that up for you, she said. After a moment, yes, we have a visit for Jackson on that date. Was it for Helen Jackson? No, it shows Andre Jackson. The insurance card presented was for Helen Jackson, with Andre listed as a dependent. My breath caught. I see. Could you send me confirmation of that visit for my records? Of course. We can email you a receipt. I thanked her and hung up. Andre wasn't my dependent. He was 35 years old with his own insurance through his employer. There was no legitimate reason for him to use my HSA card. I called the pharmacy next and received similar confirmation. Andre had filled a prescription using my HSA card the same day. By late afternoon, my dining table was covered with printouts. Credit card statements, social media screenshots, HSA transactions, and confirmation emails. I arranged them chronologically, creating a timeline of financial exploitation that was impossible to ignore. I took photos of the layout, then carefully placed each document in a plastic sleeve. The hardware store credit card statement and social media evidence went into a folder labeled Exhibit C. The HSA documentation became Exhibit D. As I worked, a strange calm settled over me. The papers spoke a language clearer than words, a language of dates, amounts, and irrefutable connections. Andre might twist my words or question my memory, but he couldn't argue with his own digital footprint. I printed one final document, a side-by-side comparison of the credit card charges and Andre's renovation photos, with dates aligned. The correlation was perfect. Each major purchase appeared in his social media posts within days. This wasn't opportunistic borrowing. This was systematic theft, hidden behind a mask of concern for my well-being. I slid the comparison into the plastic sleeve labeled Exhibit C and closed the folder. The evidence was mounting, but I wasn't done yet. There were still more threads to pull. The credit alert came at 6:17 a.m. on Thursday. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, pulling me from sleep with its urgent tone. Potential new account detected, the notification read. FiberNet Communications inquiry on your credit report. I sat up, fully awake now. I hadn't applied for any new services, especially not internet. My basic cable and DSL package had served me well for years. After my morning coffee, I called the number on the alert. The automated system transferred me to a security specialist who confirmed that someone had attempted to open a fiber internet account and add a mobile phone line in my name the previous evening. The application was flagged because you have a credit freeze in place, the specialist explained. We require additional verification when that happens. I didn't apply for these services, I said. Can you tell me what address was listed for installation? She hesitated. I can confirm it's not the address we have on file for you. It's an apartment building on Westlake Avenue. Andre's condo. This is fraud, I said firmly. I need documentation of this attempted account opening. I'll email you the application details. You should also file a police report. I thanked her and hung up. Minutes later, my inbox pinged with the promised documentation. The application included my social security number, date of birth, and an email address I didn't recognize, jackson.family@gmail.com. I'd never created that email account. I called FiberNet back and requested their installation records for Andre's address. After some hesitation, the customer service representative confirmed they had completed an installation there 3 weeks ago, under my name. The account is active and in good standing, she said. Would you like to make a payment? No, I replied. I need to report this as fraud. I never authorized this service. The representative transferred me to their fraud department, where I spent the next hour completing a report. They would investigate, but in the meantime, I requested copies of the installation ticket, service agreement, and all communications sent to that email address. We'll need an affidavit, the fraud agent explained. And you should contact the credit bureaus to dispute this account. By noon, I had added the FiberNet documentation to a new folder labeled Exhibit E. The unauthorized account would damage my credit score, a score I'd maintained impeccably for decades. I was about to break for lunch when the mail arrived. Among the usual flyers and bills was a stern-looking envelope from Quick Loan Financial Services. I opened it with growing dread. Final notice before collections, the letter announced in bold red type. Your personal loan payment of $267.89 is now 60 days past due. I had never taken out a personal loan from Quick Loan Financial Services. The letter referenced a $6,000 loan originated 5 months ago. The account was now being transferred to collections, and the full balance of $5,734.22 was due immediately. My hands trembled slightly as I dialed the number on the letter. After verifying my identity, I spoke with a collections manager who pulled up the loan details. This loan was approved based on your excellent credit history, Ms. Jackson, he explained. The funds were deposited into a checking account at First Capital Bank. The same bank where Dre Jackson Maintenance Services held an account. The application was completed online, he continued. All communications were sent to the email address provided, jackson.family@gmail.com. The same email used for the FiberNet application. This loan is fraudulent, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. I never applied for it, never received the funds, and never authorized anyone to use my information. The collections manager sounded skeptical but agreed to send me the loan documentation and application details. He also provided instructions for filing a fraud claim, though he warned the process could take months to resolve. After hanging up, I sat at my dining table, surrounded by growing evidence of financial exploitation. I ordered my full credit report from all 3 bureaus, paying for expedited delivery. I needed to see the full extent of the damage. When the reports arrived by email an hour later, I printed them and began highlighting every unfamiliar account. The fiber internet service. The phone line. The personal loan. The hardware store credit card. Each one had lowered my credit score, creating a cascade of negative impacts. I documented each discrepancy, filing dispute forms for each fraudulent account. Then I added the loan documentation to a folder labeled Exhibit F. As I worked, my phone chimed with a text message from Andre. Mom, people are worried about you. Don't do anything that makes this ugly. Let's talk this weekend. The veiled threat hung in the digital space between us. I didn't respond. Instead, I looked at the collections notice in my hand and carefully placed it in the Exhibit F folder. The lines were being drawn, utility lines, phone lines, credit lines, all in my name but benefiting my son. Each one a strand in a web designed to trap me in dependency. But webs can be broken. And the spider rarely expects the fly to carry scissors. The call from First National Bank came at 2:15 p.m. on Friday. I was watering the peace lily in my bedroom, one of the few items I'd kept from the living room, when my phone rang. Ms. Jackson? This is Tamara Wilson from First National Bank's Customer Service Department. I'm calling to verify a document that was presented at our downtown branch today. I set down the watering can. What document? A durable power of attorney naming Andre Jackson as your agent. He's attempting to access your accounts and make some changes. Before we proceed, we need to confirm this is authorized. A chill ran through me despite the warm afternoon sun streaming through my window. That power of attorney was revoked 6 months ago. I filed the revocation with your bank in person. Silence on the line. Then, let me check our records. More silence, punctuated by keyboard clicks. Yes, I see the revocation was properly recorded in our system on April 12th. Thank you for confirming. Is Andre still at the branch? I asked. Yes, he's waiting for approval. Please inform him that the power of attorney has been revoked and is no longer valid. Of course, Ms. Jackson. Would you like me to note any other restrictions on your account? Yes, I said firmly. No changes to my account should be made without my in-person verification with photo ID. And please flag any unusual activity immediately. After hanging up, I called Elaine Winters, my attorney. Her secretary put me through immediately. He tried to use the old POA, I explained. The bank caught it, but he's escalating. This is exactly why we recorded the revocation, Elaine replied. Can you come to my office this afternoon? I think it's time to review our options. 2 hours later, I sat across from Elaine in her office, the trust binder open between us. Nia had joined us, her expression grim as I recounted the bank's call and the growing evidence of financial exploitation. The revocation was your first line of defense, Elaine said, tapping the notarized document. The trust is your second and stronger protection. Let's review what we've established. She turned the pages methodically. My house deed, retitled in the name of the trust. My savings and investment accounts, similarly protected. The successor trustee designation naming Nia, giving her authority to act if I became incapacitated, or if someone attempted to claim I was. The credit freezes have already prevented new accounts, Elaine noted. But we need to address the existing fraudulent accounts. I recommend filing a police report. Will that be necessary? I asked, thinking of Andre's face on a police report. Helen, Nia said gently, this isn't a misunderstanding. This is systematic financial abuse. The credit card, the loan, the utilities, all in your name without your knowledge. That's identity theft. Elaine nodded. And attempting to use a revoked power of attorney is a serious matter. He's trying to gain control of your assets through deception. I looked down at the trust binder, at the careful legal language that protected what I'd spent a lifetime building. What should I do next? First, don't sign anything he gives you, Elaine advised. Document every contact. If he calls, put him on speaker and record it. If he texts, save screenshots. We need to establish a pattern of behavior. She pulled out a legal pad and began writing. I'll draft a preservation letter putting him on notice that he must preserve all communications and financial records. Then we'll prepare a pre-litigation notice outlining the evidence we've gathered and the legal consequences he's facing. Will this go to court? I asked. That depends on him, Elaine replied. Many cases like this settle once the perpetrator realizes the evidence is overwhelming. But we should be prepared either way. Nia reached across the table and took my hand. Auntie, if you want to go forward with this, I'll testify. I've seen the messages, the threats. I've helped you document everything. I squeezed her hand, grateful for her support. Thank you. There's one more thing, Elaine said, pulling out a form. Given the attempted use of the revoked POA, I recommend we file an elder abuse report with Adult Protective Services. This creates another layer of documentation and may provide additional resources. I nodded, though the term elder abuse made my stomach tighten. I wasn't helpless. I wasn't confused. I was fighting back. As Elaine prepared the documents, I thought about the empty rooms in my house. They weren't a sign of loss but of strategic retreat, clearing the battlefield to better see who was advancing. By the time I left Elaine's office, the preservation letter and pre-litigation notice were drafted, printed, and signed. The elder abuse report was completed. A police report would be filed on Monday. Remember, Elaine said as we parted, you're not alone in this. The law is on your side. That evening, I received a text from Andre, Mom, we need to talk. I'm coming over tomorrow. I didn't reply. Instead, I placed the trust binder on my bedside table and set my alarm for early morning. I would be ready when he arrived. Not with tears or accusations, but with evidence and boundaries. The revocation wasn't just a legal document. It was a declaration of independence. Saturday morning arrived with a clarity that matched my resolve. I rose early, showered, and dressed in a crisp blue blouse and slacks, the outfit I used to wear to parent-teacher conferences when I needed to project authority. I arranged my dining table carefully, the trust binder to one side, the evidence folders stacked neatly in the center, a legal pad and pen ready for notes. Then I waited. Andre's car pulled into my driveway at 10:17 a.m. I watched through the window as he sat for a moment, checking his phone before exiting the vehicle. Jada remained in the passenger seat, her face hidden behind large sunglasses. The doorbell rang. I took a deep breath and walked to the entrance, positioning myself squarely in the doorway. When I opened the door, Andre's smile faltered at my stance, clearly blocking entry rather than welcoming him in. Mom, he began, his tone carefully calibrated to sound concerned. We need to talk about what's going on with you. Yes, we do need to talk, I replied evenly. But not inside. His eyes darted past me to the empty living room visible through the doorway. Are you still being difficult about the furniture? That's why I'm here. I'm worried about your decision-making lately. I didn't move from the threshold. I'm making my decisions very clearly, Andre. And right now, I'm deciding that you won't be coming inside my house. His expression hardened. Mom, this isn't like you. People are concerned. First the furniture, now you're acting paranoid. I'm just trying to help. Help yourself to what, exactly? I asked. My bank accounts? My credit? My home? He blinked, momentarily thrown off script. What are you talking about? I reached to my right, where I'd placed a thick manila folder on the entryway table. I'm talking about the $1,200 L transfer to maintenance. I'm talking about the hardware store credit card opened in my name with $3,400 in charges shipped to your condo. I'm talking about my HSA account used for your urgent care visit. I'm talking about the fiber internet and phone line installed at your address under my name. I'm talking about the $6,000 personal loan taken out in my name with the money deposited in your business account. With each item I listed, Andre's face shifted, from confusion to shock to something darker. You're confused, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. You probably forgot authorizing these things. This is exactly why I've been trying to help manage your finances. Is that why you tried to use a revoked power of attorney at my bank yesterday? His eyes widened. They called you? Of course they called me. The revocation is on file. Has been for 6 months. Andre's demeanor changed then, his concern mask slipping to reveal calculation beneath. Mom, you're making serious accusations based on misunderstandings. Let me come in so we can sort this out privately. There's nothing to sort out, I said, my voice steady. You have two options. You can repay everything you've taken, sign an admission of what you've done, and stay away from my finances. Or I can file charges for identity theft and financial exploitation. He reached for the folder in my hand. Let me see what you think you have. I pulled it back. You'll see it in court. Jada appeared behind him then, her face tight with anger. Helen, you're being completely unreasonable. Andre has only ever tried to help you. You're clearly unstable. Unstable, I repeated. Is that the story you're going with? Andre stepped closer, lowering his voice. Mom, think about what you're doing. You're alone. You need family. You need me. Don't make this ugly. You made it ugly when you stole from me, I replied. When you opened accounts in my name. When you tried to take control of what I spent decades building. I'm your son, he said, as if the title granted automatic rights to my life's work. And I'm not your ATM, I countered. Nor am I confused, unstable, or slipping. I'm documenting everything, Andre. Every transaction. Every attempt to access my accounts. Every threat. His face flushed. Threats? I've never threatened you. A woman your age, alone, without family who really cares about her could end up in a very bad place, I quoted his words back to him. That's a threat, Andre. And it's recorded in my police report. The mention of a police report hit him like a physical blow. He stepped back, reassessing. This isn't over, he said finally. You need help, Mom. More than I realized. They left then, Andre's arm around Jada's shoulders as they walked to the car, heads bent in conversation. I closed my door, locked it, and returned to my dining table. My phone buzzed less than an hour later. A notification from social media. Andre had tagged me in a post. I rarely used my account, but I logged in to see what he'd written. Heartbroken today, his post began. Trying to care for an aging parent who refuses help is one of life's hardest challenges. When memory issues and paranoia take over, even the most loving intentions get twisted. Hashtag toxic elders, hashtag caregiver stress, hashtag pray for us. The comments flooded in immediately. Friends and colleagues offering sympathy. Assurances that he was doing the right thing. Suggestions to seek guardianship. Each one based on a narrative that cast him as the devoted son and me as the declining, difficult elder. I took screenshots of the post and comments, adding them to a new folder labeled Exhibit G, Public Statements. Then I logged out without responding. While Andre crafted his public image, I continued building my case. I organized bank statements, credit reports, and account documentation into clearly labeled exhibits. I transcribed our doorway conversation while it was fresh in my memory. I reviewed the preservation letter Elaine had prepared, making sure it covered all relevant evidence. By evening, my dining table held a complete record of financial exploitation, methodical, chronological, and irrefutable. I photographed each exhibit for backup, then placed everything in a large accordion folder. On a yellow sticky note, I wrote, filing, 8 a.m. Monday. I placed it on the folder cover and set my alarm. Andre was spinning a story of concern and care. But I had something stronger than narrative. I had receipts. Monday morning dawned with a stillness that belied the significance of the day. I dressed carefully in a navy pantsuit I'd worn to school board meetings, professional, dignified, unmistakably serious. Elaine met me at the courthouse steps at 7:45 a.m., briefcase in hand. Nia arrived moments later, having taken the morning off work to support me. Are you ready? Elaine asked as we climbed the stone steps. I nodded. More than ready. The clerk's office opened promptly at 8. We joined the short line of early morning filers, attorneys mostly, their faces showing the practiced neutrality of people who navigated legal waters daily. When our turn came, Elaine presented the civil complaint, Helen Marie Jackson versus Andre Lawrence Jackson. Causes of action: identity theft, financial exploitation of an elder, fraud, and conversion. The clerk reviewed the paperwork, stamped each page, and assigned a case number, CV 2025-4721. She handed us the receipt and filed copies. Case number CV 2025-4721 has been entered into the system, she announced. The defendant will be served within 5 business days. I exhaled slowly. The docket number made it real, a matter of public record now, not just private pain. We left the courthouse and walked to a nearby cafe for coffee. Elaine explained the next steps. The process server would deliver the complaint to Andre, starting a countdown for his response. He would have 21 days to file an answer or risk a default judgment. Most defendants contact an attorney immediately, she explained. Expect his lawyer to reach out to me within days. My phone began buzzing in my purse before we'd finished our coffee. Andre's name flashed on the screen. I showed it to Elaine. Don't answer, she advised. Let it go to voicemail. From now on, all communication should go through me. The calls continued throughout the morning, 5 in total, each followed by a voicemail notification. I didn't listen to them. Instead, I forwarded each one to Elaine, who would document them as evidence of contact attempts. By afternoon, the text messages started. Mom, what have you done? This is insane. We need to talk. You're making a huge mistake. Please call me back. We can fix this privately. Each message more urgent than the last. Each one forwarded to Elaine without response. I checked Andre's social media accounts. His "Toxic Elder" post had disappeared. His entire feed had gone quiet. No updates, no comments, no carefully curated image of the devoted son. The following day, Elaine called. Andre's attorney reached out this morning. They're requesting a family mediation session before proceeding further. What does that mean? I asked. It means they want to handle this privately, away from public record, she explained. It's often the first move when defendants realize the evidence is strong. And if I refuse? Then we continue with the lawsuit. Discovery begins, depositions are scheduled, and everything becomes part of the public record. I considered this. What do you recommend? Mediation can be useful, but in this case, I'm concerned it might be an attempt to pressure you into a less favorable settlement. Given the evidence we have, I believe we're in a strong position to proceed. Then we proceed, I said firmly. This isn't a family misunderstanding to be whispered about behind closed doors. This is fraud, and it belongs in the light. 3 days later, Elaine called again. Andre's attorney had pivoted from requesting mediation to discussing settlement terms. They're offering to repay the fraudulent charges and loans, she reported. But they want a confidentiality agreement and no admission of wrongdoing. Not acceptable, I replied. I want full repayment with interest, coverage of all my legal fees, and a signed, notarized admission of what he did. They won't like the admission part, Elaine warned. That could have professional consequences for Andre. So do fraudulent actions, I countered. I'm not protecting his reputation at the expense of my financial security. The negotiations continued for 2 weeks. Andre's attorney pushed back hard against the admission requirement, offering increased financial compensation instead. I remained firm. This wasn't about money, it was about truth and accountability. Finally, a breakthrough came. Andre's attorney proposed a structured settlement, repayment of $22,800 plus interest, coverage of all legal fees, and a signed, notarized statement acknowledging improper use of Helen Jackson's personal and financial information resulting in unauthorized accounts and transactions. It's not as direct as we wanted, Elaine explained, but it clearly admits wrongdoing while using language his attorney can live with. Is it legally binding? I asked. Absolutely. And I've insisted the statement be attached to the settlement agreement in the court record. It won't be sealed. Public record beats public opinion, I said, recalling our earlier conversation. Exactly. I reviewed the proposed settlement agreement carefully. The repayment schedule was reasonable, monthly payments over 1 year with significant penalties for default. The legal fee coverage was comprehensive. And most importantly, the admission statement, while carefully worded, left no doubt about what had occurred. I'll accept these terms, I told Elaine. The settlement papers were prepared and a signing meeting scheduled at Elaine's office. Andre would attend with his attorney, I would attend with Elaine. Nia would be present as my support person and witness. On the appointed day, I arrived early, my resolve steady. When Andre entered with his lawyer, a sharp-suited woman with a perpetual frown, he wouldn't meet my eyes. He looked smaller somehow, his confident posture replaced by the hunched shoulders of someone facing consequences. The attorneys handled most of the talking, reviewing each section of the agreement and explaining the terms. When it came time to sign, Elaine pushed the papers across the table. Andre hesitated, pen hovering above the signature line. This will be public, his attorney reminded him quietly. But it's better than proceeding to trial. He signed quickly, then the admission statement, his usual flowing signature reduced to a tight scrawl. The notary stamped and sealed both documents. I signed next, my hand steady, my signature clear and deliberate. The notary completed her work, and copies were distributed to all parties. The first payment is due in 30 days, Elaine reminded Andre's attorney. Any default will result in the penalties outlined in Section 4. They nodded and gathered their things. Andre stood to leave, finally glancing at me. I hope you're satisfied, he said, his voice low. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say that the legal documents hadn't already stated more clearly than words ever could. After they left, Elaine handed me my copy of the settlement agreement, now officially filed with the court. Congratulations, Helen. You stood your ground. I looked down at the docket number stamped on the corner of the page. CV 2025-4721. The case was closed, but the record would remain, a public testament to truth. The final payment arrived exactly 1 year later, a cashier's check for $1,900, completing the restitution Andre had been ordered to pay. I deposited it without ceremony, watching as the teller processed the transaction with the same efficiency she'd shown for the 11 previous payments. All done, Ms. Jackson, she said, handing me the receipt. Your account is now updated. Thank you, I replied, tucking the paper into my purse. Outside the bank, spring sunshine warmed the air. I walked slowly to my car, feeling a curious lightness. Not elation or triumph, but something quieter, the absence of a weight I'd carried for too long. My phone chimed with a text message as I reached my vehicle. Andre's name appeared on the screen, the first direct contact he'd attempted in months. Final payment sent. We're family. Can we reset? I sat in my car, considering his words. Reset. As if our relationship were a malfunctioning appliance that could be fixed with the push of a button. As if the systematic financial exploitation had been a temporary glitch rather than a deliberate pattern. For a moment, I allowed myself to imagine saying yes. Family dinners resumed. Holiday gatherings. The comfortable fiction of forgiveness without change. It would be easier in many ways, less explaining to relatives, fewer awkward questions from friends. But ease had never been my priority. Dignity was. I typed my response carefully, I wish you well, Andre. My boundaries stay in place. Then I started my car and drove home, not to the house Andre had known, but to the small garden apartment I'd purchased 6 months after the settlement. It was closer to Nia's family, with a sunny patio perfect for my growing collection of plants. The trust binder sat on my bookshelf, no longer a defensive weapon but a quiet guardian. My name on its spine was enough to remind me of what I'd protected. I watered my peace lily and African violets, then settled into my favorite chair with a cup of tea. On the wall hung a simple framed quote Nia had given me: "Boundaries are the distance at which I can love you and me simultaneously." My phone remained silent. No angry response from Andre, no emotional manipulation, no attempts to reframe my decision as evidence of instability. Perhaps he'd finally understood that my clarity wasn't confusion, my boundaries weren't bitterness. Over the past year, I'd rebuilt more than my financial security. I'd reclaimed my sense of self, the woman who had raised a child alone, managed school budgets for decades, and planned carefully for retirement. That woman hadn't disappeared, she'd simply been temporarily obscured by someone else's narrative. The doorbell rang, interrupting my thoughts. I opened it to find Nia and her daughter Zora, carrying a small cake. "We thought we should celebrate," Nia explained, setting the cake on my dining table. "The final payment means it's officially over." "Is it a victory party?" Zora asked, her 16-year-old directness making me smile. "Not exactly," I replied, getting plates from the kitchen. "It's more of a peace party." As we enjoyed the cake, Nia asked gently, "Did Andre contact you about the payment?" I nodded. "He wanted to reset." "And?" I wished him well. From a distance. Nia squeezed my hand. "You know, Auntie, a lot of people would have given in. It's harder to maintain boundaries than to pretend everything's fine." "I didn't win by arguing," I said, echoing words I'd repeated to myself throughout the ordeal. "I won by preparing." After they left, I opened my patio doors to let in the evening breeze. The curtains lifted gently, dancing in the soft air. I thought about the empty rooms in my old house, how they'd seemed like a loss to Andre but had been the first step in my reclamation. Sometimes victory doesn't announce itself with fanfare. Sometimes it arrives as quietly as a breeze through an open window, not as conquest, but as calm. I hadn't fought to punish Andre. I'd fought to protect what was mine, my finances, my autonomy, my right to define my own story. The settlement wasn't revenge, it was restoration. The sun began to set, casting long shadows across my patio. I watched as the light shifted, transforming ordinary objects into something more beautiful and complex. Time would do the same with this chapter of my life, not erasing it, but integrating it into the larger story of who I was and who I was becoming. Peace wasn't a reunion. It wasn't forgiveness without accountability. It wasn't pretending the harm hadn't occurred. Peace was the quiet certainty that I had done what was necessary. That I had trusted my own perceptions. That I had chosen self-protection over obligatory sacrifice. As darkness fell, I closed my windows and turned on a lamp. The light caught the edge of the trust binder on my shelf, its spine straight and secure. Inside were the documents that had protected everything I'd built, not just assets, but the foundation of a life lived on my own terms. My son had tried to control my money. Then he found out what I had quietly prepared. Not just legal documents and financial safeguards, though those had been essential. I had prepared something more fundamental, the courage to stand alone rather than be diminished together. And in that preparation, I had found not just protection, but peace.